Hello. I see someone has joined. Okay, so while this is happening, I'm going to, until I get questions. I'm not sure what to talk about. I just thought this could be like a AMA, or you can ask where you can ask questions or just chat. I'm not used to doing streams like this, so this is going to be very stream of consciousness-ish, I guess. You're going to hear a whine. That's not an audio issue. That is the 3D printer is currently going on right now, printing a project for a friend. So if you're hearing like, it's not your audio. It's just a tiny little plastic spinning robot over there. Oh, YouTube. So someone's saying my YouTube's unavailable. It should... link. And apologies for the apparently ASMR sound of my keyboard here. So someone's asking, your YouTube is unavailable on the Jitsi chat. And that is, when I started, I ran into issues and I had to kill the stream and I started again, but I think it changed the key and the share address. So I'm going to paste the new address in there. It should work, hopefully. All right, so hopefully that should work for you. Because it's saying I'm live, so again, I'm very new to streaming in general, and the only times I've ever streamed have been via YouTube, but YouTube's weird, and also their interface kind of changed since last time I streamed on it, so apologies beforehand. So yeah, I guess I could start off with, until I get some questions, either I could load up something on the desktop, projects that I'm working on or something. Don't have a large plan here. I had plans for the evening and via stream, because I'm currently under house arrest. Well, not house arrest. I'm under quarantine, and I'm glad I'm under quarantine. I believe in quarantine. But yeah, I had to leave the provincial borders, and if any one of the couple who are watching this aren't from around here, I'm in Nova Scotia, and Nova Scotia has what they call a bubble, and so there's a requirement that if you traveled outside of Nova Scotia, or you're coming from outside of Nova Scotia, that you have to self-isolate, aka quarantine, for 2 weeks, and basically not leave the property and not associate with people or anyone who hasn't already been exposed. And so I'm on day 5 or 6. Started on Friday. I had to leave for an appointment in Montreal for a medical consult. And so I've been here, and we were going to play a game via streaming of Gloomhaven, and things came up. Plus, most of the participants are going to do it in person, but then we got an uptick in cases. So out of caution, they're not doing it as well. So I figured, well, while I have like some time earmarked to watching a computer screen and other human beings, I'd say, well, you know what, I haven't had an AMA in a while, and, you know, I figured I'd try a new format, but, oh, great to know that the new link's working. So, yeah, I guess in order to kind of fill the time a little until I do have any questions, I'll also open up, see if I can do something interesting here. Open up a project or something I would have been working on. Let's see. I suppose I could try to open up my... I do have a project on the go attempting to do a carousel using only CSS, or a generator for carousel using CSS, based on a Perl script that I did predominantly for a work thing. But I figured, hey, this is an excellent opportunity for me to try to learn Angular. And because I've not used Angular before, and it is apparently a very, very big thing. So most of my JavaScript experience is very old JavaScript, very bare bones OG JavaScript, with some, obviously I've done some jQuery, and I don't know if it's still used. There was a framework years ago that I used at work called Sencha, which was mainly for business tools, because I was working in a corporate IT, I was developing in a corporate IT thing. So it's like, you know, graphs and forms and stuff like that. It was predominantly for, you know, data management, corporate stuff. So a lot of these new JavaScript frameworks it kind of just flew over me as I was doing mostly Perl dev. To the extent that a few years ago I did a interface for a touch panel at a local game store, just for free, just because I was part of the fighting game community there, and let me put this on mute, and the shop owner who ran the shop that hosted these FGC meets, as well as the person who originally was hosting those meetups as well, were concerned that a lot of the players were kind of pooling around each other and is alienating new players. So I created a tool called Salt Shaker, which just very basically just matched two people randomly together. It wasn't seed driven. We were taking ELO rankings, but we weren't using them to do the matching. And then another friend of mine would take the data from that would export from the tool and would use it to generate the ELO rankings. And it was just a pure client-side, browser-based touchscreen matching thingy. But at the time, touch interfaces for the web were very limited, especially if you weren't on a mobile device. So mobile devices would send certain events, but desktop PC browsers weren't. And this particular touchscreen was a kind of a basic... your fingers get tracked as mouse clicks, and so they didn't get tracked as touches. So they weren't actually touch events. And in terms of frameworks, there wasn't really anything for good touch interface frameworks, at least that I found were dummy-proof, I guess, at the meetups, because there's a lot of people just wanting to get to the next match, so they want something that could, you know, you could fat finger without having a big problem. Yeah, it was a lot of the frameworks that were out there was like, oh, are you on a mobile device? I'm going to show you a big fat button with a big touch target. Oh, are you on a desktop? I'm going to show you the tiny button. And that's fine. It drives me nuts when you get like desktop clients that look like mobile clients. But in my case, it was not what I wanted. I want something with big, fat touch targets. And jQuery Mobile didn't provide that. There was a few like... Oh, oops. There's a few like frameworks that um, they would ape stuff like the Microsoft Surface, or was it the Lifetile look, whatever you call it, the Windows 8 start menu thing. But that didn't work out so well. So I ended up having to basically create a framework from scratch, but it was so sloppy and so awful. I never wanted to commit the source of it. It was functionally very useful. It was code-wise nightmarish and very specific to this tool. I also tried to be too clever by half at the time. I was still doing work for the corporate IT folk, and so I had put way too much effort in securing the different silos away from each other, because it was purely client-driven. There wasn't any hosting in the background. I was storing the data into localhost and allowing an export function, and I didn't want someone to go into like the browser tools and start mucking about with someone else's data on another group by accident. So it was multi-user. You could log in with different users and it would store it in a different thing. But to obfuscate it, I would basically base64 encode it. I forgot. I used a JavaScript library to encrypt it with a decryptable hash that would use the username and password as the key and partial and part of the salt to decrypt both the name of the account that you needed as well as the data, which sounds like a overkill way to do things, and it was. But it also amounted, because there was no real need for this level of privacy. This wasn't bank account information. Troubleshooting if the localhost data got corrupt got really difficult, because then I have to go into a console, and I ended up creating a JavaScript function in the tool that would go into the console and run in order to effectively decrypt it anyway, in order for me to fix the data and allow the tool to continue to operate. It was sloppy. It was awful, but it was also done fairly quickly, and I was learning a lot doing it. But anyhow, so now I'm trying to learn how to use Angular, which is more, let's say, production ready, and makes sense. I do love these frameworks that just kind of allow you to real-time update the information, the data model, and just have it pop up immediately and update immediately and trigger what you need to immediately. I do find there's some weird kludge in Angular that I've seen so far, but Angular JS. I guess there's a distinction there. There appears to be some kludge. There's a few things I question about it. In a few different ways, they've done things I've learned is not a good idea over my time developing, such as, you can do this through all of these multiple ways of doing this, and this lack of control is going to cause headaches later. Syntactic sugar variances that lead to incongruences in how the script appears from place to place, which sounds funny, me, a Perl developer, saying this, but as a Perl developer, I comment the hell out of everything, and I found that AngularJS developers don't comment anywhere near as much. So, Perl users know our code is unreadable, so we try to make it parsable via, natural human language. Not every... I know there's bad examples for everything, but has anyone else joined in? I'm still just going on here. Let's see. Oh, sad. I saw a few people interested in me doing the live chat today, and haven't seen anyone join. Let's see. Let me try to get some more. Let me try to re-solicit. you know, I'll keep this going for a bit. Might, like I said, run a project or two on the screen. I think I still have my screen share function OBS properly set up. Let's see. Do I have anything else I need to work on in the meantime? Suppose I could set it on speakers and do some of my masking on old mannequin over there. I call the mannequin Seth. So many things I could work on. This problem I'm running into is I have a dearth of projects I should do that I haven't done. You know what? This is an oldie but a goodie. I have an old project. I did an old e-tank to store estrogen patches in, and I kept meaning to redo it. So I wonder. Okay, let me share the screen here, which I think should work. Please don't make me regret sharing the screen. Excellent. Hello, Blender. So this is the old e-tank. This was done in FreeCAD before I had any idea what I was doing in FreeCAD. And even now, I have no idea what I'm doing in FreeCAD. So, yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing in FreeCAD still. I use FreeCAD on occasion, especially if I need something particularly parametric, or I need, like if I want to do a basic box, it's useful. You know, I'll boot up FreeCAD. May as well. This is FreeCAD. Yeah, there it is. So FreeCAD is free, and it's CAD, and those are among the friendly things I can say about it. It is, yeah. So I will use this still on occasion. I just realized my screen is inverted, and that is funny. Is my screen inverted on YouTube? Or is it just on Jitsi? Oh, it's just on Jitsi. Okay, that's funny. Let me fix that. I wonder if I can fix that. I don't know if Jitsi lets me do that. Hilariously, I don't think it does. Ha! Okay, so if you're watching it on Jitsi and not YouTube, everything is mirrored, which is funny, and not what I don't know. That is great. YouTube has it straight. Looks like. Yeah, so I'll have to sort that out later. I wonder if it's an OBS camera setting. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea why it's reversing itself that way. That is wild. Like, I get what they're trying to do, but, like, come on. Jitsi, if I was showing a thing on the screen, I want it flipped around. Alright. I guess we leave it as that. Anyhow, let's get started on FreeCAD. How do you spell FreeCAD backwards? Dakir? So FreeCAD, I don't understand half of this stuff, and it's one of these communities that is... I looked into it. It's one of the communities I don't really have an interest in jumping too much into, because it's going to be those that involve you having to ask 700 questions to a web forum that's just going to tell you you just shouldn't do it that way. Hey! Roz, I recognize that. I recognize that name. Hey! So yeah, I was just chatting about FreeCAD because waiting for anyone to come in and ask questions. So, or just chatting about work and working on 3D stuff. So saying, can you see me okay? You can use the chat on the side if you don't want to chat over the mic. Oh, we have lost Roz. No worries. My computer randomly will blue screen on... I actually turned off... Like, I had to... I task mangled away Firefox because I love Firefox as a browser, but it... if I try to do video streaming on it, like if I play multimedia on it, for some reason it memory leaks to high heaven and then eventually just dies. And then if I try to do like anything that does streaming, like video streaming, like, you know, like Jitsi, for example, it randomly blue screens on me. So I'm currently using Chrome for this bit. And so, yeah, the what I was getting at is I use two programs when I do the 3D bits. I use a combination of FreeCAD and or Blender. Blender is the one I'm most comfortable at the moment. I occasionally also use Maya, but that's mainly because I was trained in Maya back when I tried being an animator. So still a lot of Maya that I'm familiar with and a lot of Blender that I'm not. But I'm learning more of Blender as I go along, and I prefer to use an actual like free tool to do my work. So that's why I tried using FreeCAD here. And so FreeCAD, the difference between like, I'll show you kind of the difference between the two. So let's say I'm in FreeCAD here and I create a cube. Now at any point I can click on this cube and its properties here are available to me. So I can see, you know, if you're on the Jitsi meet, it might cut off here, but so yeah, I basically on the bottom corner there are millimeter measurements for its length, width, and height. So I can like set this to, you know, let's put it to 20, right? And so now I have a rectangle or a rectangular prism. Now at any point, let's say I want to put a screw hole in there, I can create a cylinder. And then move it to where I want. So let's say there's the cylinder. Again, I have access to its radius here and its height and a bunch of other things. So let's make it a little taller so it pokes through. And here we are. I'm going to duplicate it. Normally you would label these things. Trust me, if you don't, you're going to suffer. But since it's just a demonstration. So now I have these two kind of like screw holes in play. I can then take this cube and then select one of these cylinders and basically do a Boolean on it, which will subtract the cylinder from the cube. Right? So now I have a cube with a hole in it. How many decimals? It actually, interestingly enough, this is one thing I'll grant to FreeCAD for sure, is it honors the metric system. So if you go 1 millimeter, it'll go a millimeter. If you go 0.01 millimeters, it'll go into like decimeters. Like it basically goes like, I keep going. It'll go below and below. It'll actually go to like nanometers, picometers if you need it to. It'll go as high up as you need it to. So even though I'm not sure how many decimals the float value will allow, it'll adjust the unit to match the value. So it doesn't have to go too many decimals, because eventually the unit will adjust. And that's just kind of the beauty of the metric system, I suppose. Of course, when doing stuff for like additive manufacturing, like 3D printing, you no real sense in going below, say, point oh, like, I don't know, 0.03 millimeters, 0.02 millimeters. Like you're really splitting hairs when you get that small for standard hobbyist additive manufacturing. But if you're doing something like, if you got access to like fancy sintering machines, or you're getting stuff ready to lathe or whatever, or a proper like 6-axis CNC or something, you can actually go very, very precise. But yeah, just to kind of the idea of like parametric versus kind of your Blender modeling. So I have this hole now here, but the corner, let me see if I can, I realize it's getting cut off on the Jitsi video preview a bit, so I'm gonna, stop it, Windows. I'm going to, yeah, that'll work better. All right. So, it's funny though, because I know on the Jitsi meet it's upside down, and I wish I knew how to undo that. So you might have to go to YouTube if you really want the live things, the properly oriented. Oh, hold on. Alright, someone's asking or saying, can figure out the Jitsi chat, which is, oh, it does look right to you. Yeah, so your text isn't reversed like I'm trying to do a satanic incantation? See, okay, cool. All right, so maybe Jitsi's only doing it for me to kind of show me a mirror image of it, because I'm getting a mirror on the Jitsi preview, not on the YouTube one, but on the Jitsi video feed. I'm getting it absolutely like satanically reversed. It's weird. So, so when I made the boolean here, the holes through the cube, the component parts are still here, and where this is handy is I can go in and adjust the radius of what I just booleaned. So if I change to 14 millimeters, and then I have to recalculate, I have to recompute rather. So I go mark to recompute, and then there's this little refresh button. You see, it cut out a chunk of it because the cylinder is now huge. I can go again to like this size, recompute. Sometimes it doesn't need to do the recompute. Notice sometimes, like in that case, it just kind of popped back up. Sometimes it does. It's a very odd application, and I find it crashes a lot. Like if you don't wind up with a file that has like 3-digit like a 3-digit iterative number at the end of it by the end of your project, I'd be surprised. At least in Windows. It might be more stable on Linux. It's basically all running on Python, and the Python interpreter in the back, anytime it runs into any exception at all, the whole application just quits. And I think it does occasionally try to save your work. Tries. But so yeah, it's not the most dependable thing in the world, but it is neat for very precise measurements, as well as, again, I've just, if I had to redo this in Blender, I would have to, select the vertices and scale them down, or if it's something more elaborate, if there's multiple booleans in place, I would have to potentially have to remodel the darn thing. So sometimes this is useful. Yeah. I see my friend Roz occasionally jumping in or trying to jump in. I think she's having trouble getting in there. Which is unfortunate. I was hoping Jitsi was going to be an easy platform, but I guess mileage varies on that one. It's not she won't be the first person I saw that had some issues with it. I'm just not comfortable with Zoom or anything that involves people having to install Zoom, but I might have to default to that next time. So yeah, what about Discord? I considered it. I am a Discord noob. I know very little about Discord. I've dusted it off on occasion. I don't know how well it works for video chat. I honestly have no idea. I might have to look into that. I think, yeah, I probably have a lot of people. I probably know a lot of people who are more comfortable on Discord, so using Discord probably makes sense. I guess that's something I can try next time for sure. Okay. Can you share video as well? Can you share camera? Well, presumably, you know what? Presumably, I mean, I suppose if you can share screen, I could presumably just have an application that just shows me what the camera is showing and put it on the screen. if it comes to it. So yeah. So this is what I'd use FreeCAD for. Blender doesn't do that. However, there's a way you can kind of make it do that. So I've been experimenting lately with a add-on someone made, and I'll have to dig up the link for it again. That does parametric meshes, but basically, like, to do the equivalent of what I did earlier. Normally, so here's my cube. Blender very oddly, or I don't think it's a Blender thing, I think it's just how things materialize. When you export STLs are the 3D files used for, most people will use for 3D files. There are other formats, better formats, but STL's kind of the old, kind of the OG that people still use. STLs don't have dimensions. They have units. So their length is units. And a number of 3D printing based applications read the units as millimeters, and Blender exports its STLs with the units representing meters. Now, none of this is really a thing. For all intents and purposes, a unit is a unit. A 3D program will just label it a thing. It doesn't really care. It doesn't really care what the unit actually is. So one thing to note is if you're using Blender to do 3D printing, size your meters as if they're millimeters, because they actually are. So you can actually adjust this. Theoretically, you can adjust it at point of export. If I go to export an STL, I can go through and hit here and scale it here. That just adds a multiplier to it, so I could just reduce or increase it. But I just treat the meters as millimeters, and it's fine. So let me do my little cube here again, and let's scale it up arbitrarily. And now what's nice is it's easier to scale freehand in Blender. Like, you have regular widget tools here, which are handy. Now, if I wanted to then add the screw hole normally through normal means, I would create a cylinder. Let's make it really big here. Blender does let you go into more granularity. You'll notice as I'm working through this, I could play with its properties. I can even also go here and alter its dimensions, its actual dimensions here, which is a thing it has that Maya does not do as eloquently. And I can... It's one thing I've learned about Blender is it does a number of things Maya does better. Maya does a few things... Sorry, it does a few things better than what Maya does. There's a few things user experience-wise that I still think Maya got a little better off. But increasingly, Blender is catching up to those, and the viewport in Blender is better than the viewport in Maya. And the meshes and such are just so much better coming out of Blender than they are coming out of Maya. And Blender is free, so whew. So I would, similarly to when I did FreeCAD, I would add a, in this case called a modifier. And interestingly enough, Blender treats its modifiers as parametric properties at first. So what parametric means is it's non-destructive. I've changed, I have Booleaned this shape, but at any point I can change the shape. So it's a little awkward because Blender does not actually does not hide the thing you're, does not actually hide what it is that you're Booleaning. So I'm just gonna kind of, so there's the hole, and while I have the modifier active on that shape, I can change it here too, which is neat, and I like it. But then if you want to do other things with this mesh, you're eventually going to want to bake this Boolean in, which basically you apply the modifier. And as soon as I apply it, this polygonal mesh, this cube, is now modified and cannot be unmodified. It has been modified. It is now a cube. Manually remove all of the holes and delete vertices and stuff like that, but it's now a mesh that is actually a cube with a hole in it. But until then, until I apply it, it's kind of parametric because I can move the shape and it's going to move the hole around, which is really neat. Now, one thing I've been playing with, so one thing noticed here is Blender is a polygonal tool. What that means is I'm working in polygons. They have faces. They have faces. They have vertices and so forth and so on. Let me put on wireframe mode here. So you notice that the Boolean here has faces in it. And if I go to FreeCAD, it technically does, because it's presenting it to me as a polygonal model, but this is not a polygonal model, so it doesn't have faces. It is a cylinder. And when I decide to export this as a shape to be printed, I can tell it how smooth to make this area, because it's going to tessellate it, which basically means convert the shape into polygons. But until then, it has just got the instruction, this is a cylinder and this is a block. So it is infinitely smooth. And then at the point of rendering, I can decide how smooth it is. In Blender, this is a polygonal cylinder with this many faces on it. I have already created this. It is now how many faces it has. I can't change how many faces it has without modifying the mesh through tools that are typically made to smooth things out, which you can do but adds complexity and doesn't typically work like you'd want it to. Oh, all right, enjoy your dinner. Yeah. So I guess I'm alone again. Where are we at? might just call it a day. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll call it a day. It was an experiment. Didn't know how receptive people are going to be to this. Had to get one joiner who seemed very fascinated, but not worth keeping a stream going for.